HobbyKing is proud to present our two latest models from our exclusive Durafly range, the A1 Skyraider and the T28 Trojan. In the following video, Scott will discuss his experience with these models, so stay tuned for the following commentary and flight footage.
The thing about the Skyraider, I've seen several Skyraiders fly for real back in the UK, and the thing about this, the thing when you stand next to a Skyraider, the first thing that strikes you is it's huge. They are enormous, and when they're flying, as you'd probably expect, they are heavy metal, no doubt about it. It was a ground attack aircraft. It meant it had to be very, very well built. It had to be able to withstand ground fire and still get home. And it has to be able to carry an enormous amount of ordnance, which the Skyraider could. So the thing with it is that you need it to fly like it is heavy metal, and I think that's what really impressed me when I flew the Durafly one, because you settle into about 2/3 throttle and the scale speed becomes really quite bang on. Also at that point, the thing that often disappoints with small warbirds is that as you throttle back to scale speed, they'll lose their rate of climb. That didn't happen with the Skyraider, and I was really quite impressed with that. I was very impressed with it. The fact of the matter is it's quite easy to give it that very scale look in the air. It looks like it's heavy, and that's what you're trying to achieve. Certainly isn't about aerobatic manoeuvres, but the vertical climb rate, as it always is with any warbird, is still important. Skyraider, from a scale point of view, is really quite lovely. We have the big 4-blade prop on there, realistic spinner. The motor is the same as the others, so there's just as much thrust. It has those fantastic gear doors, rotating retracts, and those fantastic gear doors that also seal everything up. And when you look around it, obviously the detailing is all there. The big side door is on there, and I think once you've got the drop tanks on, the missiles and everything else, it's definitely a Vietnam era Skyraider, the scheme it's in, Navy, US Navy. It looks, like I said, it looks absolutely fantastic on these sort of low, slow flybys with a nice, graceful pull-up, some nice, graceful vertical performance. Not pulling big G's. It just looks absolutely fantastic. It really does. Well, the T28, of course, was designed as a preliminary trainer for the United States Air Force and the Navy, of course. The heritage of the aircraft is obviously quite impressive. Designed effectively to replace the AT-6 by the very same company, by North American, who of course made the AT-6 and of course made the P-51 Mustang. So I think without a doubt, apart from the fact that it's quite a cute looking thing, it's not surprising really that it's got quite a strong following. And again, it was one that was in service for many years. In fact, I think still is. Certainly used a lot on the display circuits now in the United States. It's actually an aircraft I've never seen fly at an air show myself. I don't think I've ever seen them in the UK, but I know for certain in the United States that they are used by display teams. The T28 was definitely the easiest to put together, I think, of all of the Durafly warbirds so far. There was definitely a few details that impressed straight away. The undercarriage is simply fantastic on it. We have a gear door at the front, and gear doors, in fact, all round. The outer gear doors, for instance, on the rear legs are sprung. They basically multi-layered, just like the real one. The fake oleal legs and all the rest of it looks absolutely superb. There's plenty of scale detail, I think there's no doubt about that. The panel lining and so on and so forth, the spinner. It's also a 3-blade prop, which coincidentally, because it uses the same motor, it actually produces a bit more thrust, so it's a bit more lively, to be perfectly honest, than the other two. Durafly T28 very definitely lives up to expectations. As I said, the thing I would expect, the thing I would hope to do with an aircraft like that is obviously have it be able to fly scale when I want to, which obviously it does perfectly, but also to use it really as a kind of dual purpose as a sport flyer. I like, when I'm flying for my own personal pleasure, I kind of like to fly what I would call air show routines. And the T28 is absolutely perfect for that. It can do all that stuff. You can fly inverted, you can do 4-point rolls, you can do split S's, you can do Immelman turns and so on, and kind of string them together really and not feel guilty about it. I wouldn't do that with a Warbird. I would be flying in scale with the odd aerobatic manoeuvre thrown in. But with a T28, really, at the end of the day, you can have an absolute blast with it and fly it completely as a sport flyer. Not difficult to fly. It flies just as well as the rest of the Durafly range, but I think that basically when it comes to full scale models like this, they're definitely not for beginners. Beginners need to look elsewhere, move on to these at a later date. But when it comes to the ease of use, I don't think, or how easy they are to fly, I think that the Durafly range are pretty remarkable in that respect, particularly for 1100mm. Being a bit smaller, they are superbly well behaved, really quite easy to live with. With slightly lower rates, there's no doubt about it, it would make a good first winger, first low winger, I think. There aren't any nasty surprises, this is the beauty of it. The day we were flying, there was a very heavy crosswind. You don't use flaps in heavy crosswinds. But that said, obviously we're testing, and I tested the flaps out. And quite honestly, the thing really does slow down to a crawl. So I think at the end of the day, yes, the orientation's very good for fairly new pilots. Like I said, not for absolute beginners, but for fairly new pilots. And it's extremely well behaved, doesn't want to basically drop a wing. Very thick wing section, lots of lift. So yeah, I'll give it a thumbs up. To sum them up, the Skyraider is what it is at the end of the day. It is an extremely scale, tail-dragging warbird that needs to be flown in a certain way. That means that at the end of the day it's extremely good at what it does. It's very good at what it does. But it's not, at the end of the day, an everyday flyer. Tail draggers by their very nature will just certain things they don't like, and crosswinds is certainly one of them. The T28 is a completely different animal. This is what I love about it. The thing about the T28 is that yes, it's scale, it's just as scale as a Skyraider, it's just as lovely as a Skyraider, but it's got that something about it. It's got that certain perkiness about it, and it's got that certain practicality about it. So I think at the end of the day, the T28 is an important addition to the range because it offers people who are maybe not warbird fanatics, but people who have certainly got an interest in scale, something that they can fly every single day of the week, looks just as scaled, looks just as much the part as the Corsair, the P51, the rest of the range, the Skyraider, but at the end of the day can do all that aerobatic stuff and a bit more besides, and be able to tolerate crosswinds and so on and so forth, and it's just a brilliant, practical, everyday flyer. That, I think, at the end of the day, is how I best sum up the T28.